Hey everyone, TJ Hernandez here with RosterCoach.com, and this is the Championship Round Week DFS Value Report where I'll be going through the featured contests on the main slate for both FanDuel and DraftKings and looking at the payout structures of these featured contests to help you guys out with your final game selection of the season. Looking at things like how much of the field is being paid, how much each game is being raked, and how much of the money is going to first place in these contests for this final weekend. FanDuel is ramping up their prize pools, especially at the top with those bigger prizes. Last week in the divisional round, we saw a few smaller prize pools than we've seen. And then on DraftKings, pretty much what we saw in the divisional round, maybe a slight drop in the prize pools in some of the bigger games, but the structures are pretty similar. So I will go through these on this two-game slate and start with these games up to the $10 level on FanDuel, and the game that FanDuel brought back this week is the Sunday Million for the last week of DFS NFL. $7 buy-in, $1.25 million prize pool with $250,000 up top. That's 20% of the prize pool going to first place, but decent number, 22% of the field being paid out in that game. At these smaller stakes, the only other contest that has a pretty significant first place prize is the Rush at the $5 buy-in level, a $40,000 first place prize up top, and the total prize pool is $200,000. So similarly, a 20% of the money going to first place. The 9,405 people that cash account for less than 20% of the field, so not as much upside as you get in the Sunday Million, and also a smaller percentage of the field being paid out relative to the Sunday Million. Of course, the trade-off there is the Rush is less than 50,000 entries, whereas the Sunday Million is over 200,000. So kind of got to give a little give and take there depending on what your goals are. And of course, at the Sunday Million, you do get a little bit of a rake drop compared to that $5 level. Drops off from 16 to 15% once you get above $5. As far as some of these contests on the other end of the spectrum, not a ton of upside, but flatter payout structures. The games that really stand out are at the $1 and $2 level. These are going to be bigger sized games, but again, a larger percentage of the field is going to be paid out. So the NFL dive at the $1 level, we see 25% of the field being paid with just over 5% of the money going to first place. And then the snap at the $2 level, which is just a 30 max entry contest, 25% of the field being paid out in that one with 5% of the money going to first place. So those are flatter contests with decent upside, $6,000 to first place in the dive, $5,000 to first place in the snap. Everything else that we see at these lower stakes kind of falls in between, either not a ton of upside with not a great structure, or just kind of decent structure, decent upside, but nothing that really stands out. At the higher stakes on FanDuel, there are quite a few opportunities to turn your buy-in to a decently sized prize pool. Just going through them by buy-in, the bomb at the $33 level is a contest with just under 9,000 entries, $250,000 prize pool with $50,000 going to first. Pretty decent upside on your $33 buy-in there, but a pretty rough structure. Only 18% of the field being paid with 20% of the money going to first place, and you're still in that 15% rake. So pretty tough in terms of value there. But if you are kind of playing those mid stakes and you want to take one last shot at a big prize, that is the game that you're probably going to be looking to this week. If we move way up in stakes up to $250 buy-in level, the Championship Showdown, which is basically the high-stakes featured contests beside the Sunday Million, that's $250 buy-in, $100,000 first-place prize, and a $325,000 prize pool. So a lot of upside again, chance to win $100,000, but over 30% of the money is going to first place in that game, less than 20% of the field being paid out. And then the Monster at the $555 level, it was $355 last week, $30,000 up top on a $150,000 prize pool. So again, 20% of the money going to first, less than 20% of the field being paid. If you're looking for upside in any game on FanDuel this week, you're either going to be combating a huge field or dealing with some not so great structures. At least on the Championship Showdown and the Monster, you do get that rake reduction. The Monster is under 10%, so that's definitely worth taking note of. We don't see a lot of contests at the higher stakes with a noticeable flat payout structure. The flattest payout structure that we see is at the $35 level. That is the spin move, $20,000 prize pool there, paying out 22% of the field with just 15% of the money going to first. That's the smallest that you're going to find at these higher stakes besides the kickoff, but that game's only paying 20% of the field at the $12 level. It's 12% of the money going to first, so not a ton of money going to first, but also not a lot of people being paid out in that one. So even though some of the money is spread out a little bit more evenly, the payout structure isn't that flat. Moving over to DraftKings, this week there are only 21 featured tournaments with a prize pool of at least $10,000, usually anywhere between 28 and 30 of those contests on the main slate on DraftKings. But again, it is championship weekend. They did keep some decently big prizes up, so probably with the expected reduction in players and wanting to offer some big prize pools, they really lowered or eliminated some of the smaller contests. But we see 3 chances to win $100,000 this week on DraftKings. We have the Championship Final Four at the $4 level, the Fantasy Football Quarter Millionaire at the $25 level, and the Wildcat at the $333 level. As far as structure goes, the Championship Final Four is clearly the best structure. We see 26% of the field being paid with just 7% of the money going to first. The prize pool's $1.4 million in that game, so your chances of cashing are decent, but we're looking at a player pool of over 400,000 entries, so you have to traverse a huge field to get any type of decent return on your money there. The Millionaire, just like last week, very similar structure. Last week the prize pool was $1.75 million. This week it's $1.7 million, but the structure is almost exactly the same. A $25 buy-in, 22% of the field being paid, and about 15% of the money going to first place. And then the Wildcat, obviously you're going to face a way smaller field at the $333 buy-in level, but 22% of the field being paid and 17% of the money going to first is one of the steepest payout structures that you're going to see. Not too many other games with a ton of upside this week. The Power Sweep is a $30,000 first place prize that accounts for under 10% of the prize pool and about 23% of the fields being paid. So if you're looking for some balance in terms of a decent payout structure and decent upside at higher stakes, that is the game to look at the $150 level. Everything else, pretty much like we've seen across the board. At the contests between the $1 and $5 level, about 27% of the field being paid, with roughly 5 to 7% of the money going to first. But again, those are noticeably smaller contests compared to some of these bigger games, so you're not going to get a ton of upside on your money. The game that stands out paying out the largest percent of the field is the Bubble Screen at the $9 level. That's a $15,000 prize pool, 27% of the field being paid, but first place is just $750. And then if we move up a little bit, where we're adding a rake reduction plus a noticeable amount of the field being paid, we have 3 contests kind of in the same mid-range. We have the 3-point stance at the $33 buy-in level, the 4th down conversion at the $40 buy-in level, and the red zone at the $50 buy-in level. Those are all limited entry contests, either 3-max or single entry, but they're all paying out over 25% of the field, so that's where you're going to see some decent value with not a huge player pool. So those are some interesting games to attack if you don't want to end the season chasing those big prizes. But that's what we have on the docket this week. Definitely go through. Probably a lot of people are going to be chasing those bigger prizes since it is the last week of big contests in the NFL, and that should attract maybe a softer field. So that might be something to add into your consideration in game selection this week. So hopefully this helps out. Good luck in the final week. Thanks to everybody for checking it out all season. Once again, TJ Hernandez with RosterCoach.com. Thank you for watching.